Exactly. Pastor Bruce, you mentioned that Jesus preferred to call himself the Son of Man. Can you please elaborate on that and then what that really means?
Yeah, in the Gospels, there are probably 30 to 35 references by Jesus to himself as the Son of Man. There's a lot of discussion about why that's the case. It may harken back to Daniel chapter 7 and the messianic vision, one coming like the Son of Man in clouds of heaven, and a sense of Jesus' rule and reign. And so it may very well be a statement of divinity, of deity, of absolute power, omnipotence, ultimate culmination of all things in Jesus Christ. But there's something mysterious. I don't want to use that word, but I'll use it, I suppose. And there's something mysterious about Jesus because in his first coming, we don't see that. We catch glimpses of that. But again, to quote Matthew chapter 20:28, the Son of Man did not come to be ministered to, but to minister and to give his life a ransom for many. So there's a different focus in Jesus' first coming, and it has to do with the securing of redemption, the making of atonement. Second coming, Jesus will come in all of his glory and splendor. He will be revealed for who he is, but he is veiled. There's a hiddenness in his first coming that isn't apparent to people as they see and hear him. Something is different, but something is very much the same. We hear the preaching of John the Baptist, for example, as the forerunner of Jesus. He's coming after me. I'm not worthy to unlatch the buckle of his sandal, and he's going to sweep the floor and he's going to cast the chaff, into the fiery furnace. And Jesus comes and he doesn't really do that. He heals the sick and he heals the blind and he does all of these kinds of things that we don't really expect Messiah to do. So there was something mysterious about that. But Jesus, when he talks about himself as the Son of Man, he captured that. And the Son of Man sayings tend to break into three different categories. First, having to do with his humiliation, the sense of servanthood. The second has to do with work of redemption, ultimately that he does, dying on the cross and securing redemption. And the third categories have to do with future rule and reign. So the Son of Man categories express different things at different times. They're difficult, and Jesus uses them. It's almost at times him using the personal pronoun I, the Son of Man. Only once or twice, maybe 3 times in the rest of the New Testament is the phrase used by anyone. So it tends to be dominant with Jesus of himself.
Excellent. Thank you, Pastor Bruce.
You clap too fast. So we mentioned that Matthew is an anonymous document, but Matthew does appear in the text. One of the tendencies in that era is that authors, they didn't want to become part of the story. You'll hear news people say this. They should not become part of the story. They do not want to become part of the story. It's discretion. It's an act of discretion. And yet Matthew is interjected into the account, and we find him in Matthew chapter 9. We're told in chapter 9, verse 9, as Jesus went on from there, he saw a man called Matthew sitting in the tax collector's booth. And he said to him, "Follow me." And he got up and he followed him. One of the categories of people, one of the types of vocations, the types of occupations that we see in the New Testament is that of tax collector. They're scorned by the people, but they tend to be presented well. Notice that in Matthew. Notice it in Luke. Other places as well. Tax collectors come across nicely on the pages of the gospel. Now, I don't know why that is. It's not Matthew's bias, because he would tell you clearly what he was delivered from. But it's one of those despised occupations. And yet, so many of these men responded to the invitation of Jesus. They responded to the call. We see Matthew again in Matthew chapter 10, the naming of the 12 after Jesus appoints the group that we come to know as apostles. Matthew chapter 10, verse 2, the first Simon, who's called Peter, Andrew his brother, and James the son of Zebedee, and John his brother, Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew the tax collector, James the son of Alphaeus and Thaddeus, Simon the zealot, Judas Iscariot, the one who betrayed him. And so Matthew, we find Matthew in another account also known as Levi. It's not uncommon in the New Testament for men to have two names. And so we see that, but we want to notice that as well. But Matthew is interjected. Another one of the categories of people, despised occupations that have come across really well are centurions. Notice how many are men of faith. It's a really pretty remarkable. And then people who should have known better, who should have recognized Messiah, did not. So there's kind of a reversal that occurs on the pages of the gospel. Some of the least likely are the ones who respond to God's grace. Some of the ones that we are sure will do not. There's something mysterious about that, the operation of God in the human heart. But as a tax collector, Matthew and some of his friends, they really respond well to the grace of Jesus Christ.
Amen.
So Matthew